Hey there. Just a few disclaimers before we start. If you can, please use your computer speakers. I've made some audio mistakes along the way. Second of all, I mentioned that this is my second video, and yes, it actually is for my own channel that I'm working on, but I'm releasing this one early exclusively just for Lightbox. Third of all, I'll be answering any and all of your questions you DM me to my Instagram. I'll put the account on the corner, and I will be answering questions until Monday, September 14th of 2020. So you can all reach me there. Okay, alright, back to the video. Enjoy. Hello. I didn't see you there. Welcome to my humble abode. Look, I know why you're here. You've been sent by Lightbox Expo. Those who stumble upon this, well, let me give you some context. I had a talk at Lightbox Expo last year called Everything You Wanted to Know About Feature Animation. I did not deliver everything people wanted to know about feature animation, but I thought it was a catchy title, and people came. I promised on the description of my talk that I'd bring pizza. I went to go get pizza, and realized I had lost my debit card the week before. I found it, but then lost it again. I panicked and went to the talk and couldn't find parking. I was getting late, so I parked in an illegal spot. I went to my talk and was 5 minutes early with no pizza. Someone in the audience yelled, "Where's the pizza?" I had illustrated my whole presentation so that people won't have to look at my face while I talk. But the projector was not working. We got it to work, and then the projector stopped working 10 minutes into the presentation. And right when it stopped working, the film crew came in to film the dumpster fire that had just occurred. I panicked some more and talked out of my ass, because I didn't memorize my speech. An angel from the audience handed us a laptop to use for the projection, so I spent the rest of the time redoing my presentation until the very last second. And long story short, Bobby invited me to do another talk this year. Okay, let me introduce myself. I've worked at this place for my first job out of school. I've worked on a VR short film for this place. I worked at this place on a project that got shelved, which got me laid off and subsequently got me deported back to Korea, right when Kim Jong-un threatened to bomb the US. It was extremely scary, so our family started to prepare for war. No lie. My family is still going through the tuna cans we bought then. However, this company brought me back to the States to work on another unannounced project. I was saved. I also worked for this company, but not in this specific building. I chose this photo because it's a popular photo. I interned at their theme park division during school and then worked in this building for their singing, British, flying, magical nanny lady movie. And now I work here as an art director on an unannounced film that is really exciting. Again, not in this specific building. So, what is this video about? Well, great question. After doing my talk last year, I realized that I even have questions that needed answers about working in animation, so I decided to drag my friends into it. Basically, this is a disguise as a talk for you guys, but in reality, it's really for me. Today, I brought you 3 people who I've worked with in the past. This is Amanda. Recording. Hey, Amanda!
Like, you break it up and you do whatever you need to do now because the kid just went down. You better have, like, all the time in the world, but then, like,
Right.
right past the minute.
Right. Your hair is so long.
It's so long. Yours looks so long.
I worked with Amanda Jolly on the movie Storks. Not only is Amanda an intelligent, thoughtful, fantastic, beaming sunshine of a human being, but she's also an insanely talented character designer who has worked at companies such as Warner Animation Group, Disney, and Sony. And also, she can do visual development, which is crazy. She's also won an Annie Award for her beautiful designs on Rapunzel's Tangled Adventure. Oh, just look at her happy face! This is Taniko.
Hey, you haven't been talking to me. You don't care about me. Oh, I see you want to talk to me now, huh? Your face is so big on this iPad still.
Stop! Okay.
I grow my hair long like Norman Reedus.
Taniko was killing artist dreams with his insane animated film since he was at CalArts. Not only can he storyboard like nobody's business, he can also animate and design characters. He's worked for Cartoon Network, DreamWorks, Toniko House, and Netflix. He's a silly goose that I had the pleasure of working with last year. This is Paul. Cyberpunk.
You know, I like that.
No.
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Like I can put an Instagram filter on and make my skin look 30 years younger. How do I do that, by the way? There's filters, aren't there?
Paul Lasaine, production designer extraordinaire. He was my boss out of school who taught me the ropes of the industry. Let me give you just the highlights. He worked on Lord of the Rings, all 3 of them. Prince of Egypt, Spider-Verse, he won an Annie Award for Box Trolls. He worked on The Croods, Rise of the Guardians, and yes, Hocus Pocus, and so much more. He was the boss I mentioned in my previous video, the boss that I farted in front of. Wait till the end to watch me ask him face to face if he remembers it. Question 1. Was animation your first goal in life?
Yes.
Animation was definitely not my first goal.
Absolutely not.
I wanted to be a cop because I got a gun. I thought guns were cool as a kid. I wanted to be a farmer for some reason. Then I wanted to go into being a scientist or an engineer because I loved Mega Man.
Actually, originally I was going to be a fireman, and then I was an astronaut.
Wait, you told me something else.
What did I tell you?
You went to clown school. Come on.
Oh no, I didn't go to clown school. That actually, okay. When I mean, we're in the 70s, so clowns weren't like creepy yet. I originally was going to be a musician.
Because when I was 5, I was like, animation. That's what I want to do. Kind of saw The Little Mermaid. And I don't even think I saw The Little Mermaid. I think I saw a trailer for The Little Mermaid on like an Oliver and Company VHS. What is this?
Oh my god, Oliver and Company VHS.
There was just something about it. And then I already like stories.
Mm-hmm.
Like something clicked in my head where I was like, people are somehow telling stories with drawings.
Okay, so you weren't planning on getting into animation, so how did you actually get into it?
I think eventually I wanted to become a film director because of Lord of the Rings. I found a world of concept artists, but that world were very bro-ish. And it just got boring to me, so I left to hang out at places like Newgrounds, made Flash cartoons.
Do you have any of them? Still?
I actually have all my high school animation. Some of them are really embarrassing. That's so embarrassing. I saw the community of Sheridan College doing animation assignments. What? That's kind of when I wanted to go into animation.
Even all the way up into my professional career, I tried to avoid animation. I got into film, but I got into live action visual effects. That was at Disney. And I started meeting some people in the animation group. They tried to get me in over there, but I really just wasn't into it. During that period, it was, I don't know if you're bleeping this stuff or not. Red wavy hair girl, lion thing. Pretty Girl and the Ugly Monster. I just wasn't interested in that. Years later, I'd been in the biz for about 7 years by that point. DreamWorks happened and they were going to do Prince of Egypt. The company I was with was kind of winding down anyway. It was a perfect time to jump. Except for that movie about hobbits. I've been in animation ever since, talking 25 years now.
Yeah.
Did you start art very young or very late in your standards? If you did start late, how did you shake the feeling that you were behind compared to other professionals?
That's a good question, Sunmin. I've never heard of this question. I always felt like I was behind a lot of people. I think it wasn't until I applied for Sheridan that's when I really felt behind because I never really learned how to draw. Mm-hmm. Trying different approaches to practicing, but at the same time, like there were areas where I did feel behind because I knew how to make animated shorts in the past. I felt more comfortable making short films at CalArts because I knew what the process was like. I felt a bit ahead in terms of like making animated projects, but in terms of like drawing and draftsmanship and skill, yeah, I always feel behind.
I started drawing when I was 3 until like middle school or high school, but then it just stopped. I was encouraged to pursue a more stable life. And so by the time that I came around to it, I was 26. I did feel super old. It was really rough. It's like the recession happened right when I got out of my master's. And so I literally couldn't find a job. So the only thing I had to do was sit there and think about what I really did want to do with my life. And that opportunity opened up to, well, maybe I seriously need to consider art. I couldn't escape the idea of, well, if I don't do it now, I'm only gonna get older. Time isn't gonna just stop passing simply because I'm nervous. That was sort of enough to just make me like rip off the Band-Aid. Where I started getting a clearer picture of what the industry looked like. And the industry just kept presenting it itself as, well, if your portfolio is good, no one's paying attention.
I didn't start getting serious about it until I was literally a year before college. That was when I decided I'm going to be an artist. I'm going to be an artist. As awesome as the internet is, we didn't have that. We had to learn it on our own. But at the same time, we also didn't know what was out there. So merrily went along being but we had no idea. We're like, yeah, fine. We're just being artists. If I was trying like to be an artist and I was able to see the stuff that's out there and know that I wasn't capable of it, I possibly wouldn't do it. What's the point? I think I'm pretty good, but there's people out there who are way the fuck better than me. I had a certain amount of talent. I was not a super talent. Most people aren't geniuses. Most people just have to work hard.
Yeah.
I was that guy. I mean, I worked really hard. There was this directory you could get. It was called LA 411, and it was this big book. It was basically an illustrator's directory. Only about maybe 20 of the pages were awesome. A lot of the stuff I looked at, I was like, I really don't like that. So seeing that big, thick book and only seeing about 15 pages that blew me away, it's like, okay, well, that's a lot of room to maneuver in the industry.
Would you possibly be comfortable talking about what your exact starting rate was? Not your current rate, but your starting rate.
Because mine was okay. Mine was like the worst starting rate because it was abysmal. It was $900 a week.
That is around that time. I heard that there were some other big studios that were paying just that much, which is crazy to me. Yeah.
When I was an intern the year before that, I think that they were paying me like $10 an hour. Like, it was nothing. And I just simply didn't know any better. I was just so excited that anybody would pay me anything. Like, I was just like eager and dumb. Like, when I knew I was about to leave, people who were mentoring me at the time just kind of happened to ask them, and they lost their minds, and they were just like, this is so far below what like the union average is. My lead at the time, he like brought over, I think, like the union wage survey and was like, here's where you are, here's the kind of job you do, and here's the salary you ought to be making. That was when I started on Storks. I like went on to Storks and I was like, I want this amount of money, and I was so terrified.
My starting rate in the industry when I was a trainee was about $900.
It's crazy to me.
Which is super low, yeah. I moved onto a TV show as a full-time story artist, a full board artist. I was being paid $1,300 per week. Yeah, that's like what starting revisionist rates, I think, right? And we were boarding in Photoshop. The show wanted fully animated boards. They wanted all these super hard to do boards in under like 3 weeks. There were times where I had to work during the weekend just to fill quota. It's a studio known for like lowballing. Yeah, this was like recently, but this was for a show that I'd have more responsibility for. But they wanted me just as a character designer, and they only wanted to pay me at a certain rate. I'd be an animator too. And I said, no, I want my title changed. And I also wanted a pay raise. And they're like, no, we can't do that. It's not part of our system. And it took me weeks just to do some negotiations. End result of that negotiation was like, okay, you're only going to get character design credits. We bumped you up to just, this much, but, we're paying so much for your visa. Your visa was pretty expensive. So if you move to a different studio, you're going to burn bridges. They told me this on the phone.
Man. People being taken advantage of left and right.
Yeah, I have my share of a lot of stories like that.
It was a company that did news graphics for newscast. $18 an hour was my rate. And this was 1985. Then I graduated from school, and then I did get my first job. It was a union job, and I got the union rate. This was $18 an hour. And I made that for a year and a half. And at that point, the studio either lets you go or they promote you to a second assistant. So for another year and a half, I worked for $22 an hour. Well, you have to be turned into a first assistant, but they can only do that if they've got a senior, a journeyman alongside you. Otherwise, they have to actually promote you. And that is what happened to me. I think at that point, my rate was like 25, maybe 28 an hour. I can't remember. The journeyman's rate was 35. I was the only matte painter on the show. The union got wind of that, and they were like, stop, you're an assistant. You're not allowed to work as a solo assistant. And so the producer was like, well, this is ridiculous. How do we avoid that? Well, that's easy. What do I do? Like, write a letter. So he wrote a letter. Next day, I come back to work. I'm a senior. What? You know, with a raise. And then when DreamWorks called me to go on to Prince of Egypt, that's when my rate really went up. My rate going in was $3,000 a week. You can get the rate sheet for and I'm not talking about the survey, the wage survey. I'm talking about the rates that the union actually pays, because most studios won't go above that for new people.
Do you ever feel like you don't know what you're doing? Which I feel like all the time, even after all of your experiences.
All the time, actually.
All the time.
Every day. Oh my God, there are so many days where I just don't know what the hell I'm doing. That said, I always know I can pull it out of the fire. That's just having done it for 30 years. For me, the hardest stuff is the other the people stuff. I mean, like one that happened the other day. You know, I'm working on a project, and I'm working with some vendors. Vendors being the people who are doing the animation for us. You know, I realize that I'm saying stuff I shouldn't be saying. And it's like on a Zoom call, but you realize lurking are like 14 other people. The producers are there and their executives are there. You know, you say stuff because you're just trying to have a conversation.
Right.
You realize, you know, you're maybe like giving like company secrets. It's dangerous. You gotta be real careful. And that's the stuff that is the hardest. You can be the greatest artist in the world, but you know, it's easy to screw up when you're talking.
The misconception is that it does get easier because you get a better sense of working on it, and your draftsmanship gets better and you get faster, which in a way can be true. It does get harder over time because you realize how hard it is to get something done. When it doesn't get you to a certain place that you hoped it would get you at, it kind of gets harder to kind of figure out the motivation. Making the decisions to like move forward with certain projects is hard.
Right.
I think that's one of those things where people have to like really slow down, maybe go into therapy to figure out what are causing those thoughts too.
That's great.
It's like I go back and forth. Sometimes I think like when I'm in a job long enough, the routine of it starts making me feel very in control. And then if something really shifts, like on Storks, I went from doing characters to doing biz dev. That was essentially like restarting.
Right.
Or it's like anytime I change studios, jobs, something like that, I suddenly am like, I gotta prove to them why they hired me.
Have you ever gotten a professional bad critique, and how did you overcome it? And like, what was the bad critique like, and how did you get over it?
I'm trying to think of some.
When you say a bad critique, I mean, like when someone goes, that's you suck. I've never had that. I have to say, I've never had that. I don't know how often that happens where you get like, that sucks.
I had a crit that was just like, I just hate this. Yeah, I just don't like that. And then like the buck stops there. I've had a lot of crits that like I haven't left feeling good at the end. But when I thought of the cause of that, it was because the crit was completely unhelpful. Literally every crit on was terrible. It was sort of like, try again. Well, what did you hate about it? Like, there's no information there. Because otherwise, I'm left in a position of almost starting from scratch. I think that what's frustrating about it is that kind of a comment, it just plugs up any creativity you could have had next.
Oh.
That makes you never want to go too far. Of the many projects I've been on, that was like one project. By and large, the people I've worked with, I've gotten something out of the critique. Because, you know, what we do is a process. What we're trying to do is get the thing that's in somebody's brain, or they don't even know what's in their brain. We're trying to show them what might be in their brain. Somebody simply saying, oh, that wasn't quite what I had in mind, why don't we try this? That doesn't feel like a bad crit to me. That feels like a stepping stone in the process.
Usually people who give bad crits, they're probably giving bad crits to other people too. It's not just you. I think that's another thing to just keep in mind.
There's a particular live action director I've never worked with who is notorious for being that harsh. You suck! You're fired! Everybody knows that that's how this person is. So it's like you can't really let that get to you. You have to look at the situation. First of all, is this person just That happens too. The other side of it is like, are they right? If you really do suck, you probably shouldn't be here. If you've been out there for 15 and 20 years and you really aren't that good at the job, then either you've made peace with that and you're okay with that, or man, you should have figured that one out a long time ago. I haven't had the bad crit in terms of my artwork, but I've definitely had the bad crit in terms of my performance as an art director, like how I handled a certain situation, where I got called into the producer's office several times, given a lashing.
Oh yeah,
you know,
I remember that.
And you come out of that, A, be careful the next time, B, maybe you were in the wrong and you need to change something.
Being someone who is active online, I do see and read comments about my work, critique, and some of them are super harsh. They're not probably from professionals, maybe, I don't know. But it's definitely something that's like, you know what, they might have a point, so.
What is the biggest misconception you had about the animation industry as an outsider that you realized when you got in?
I thought that, like, people in the American animation industry were just lame. I loved all these edgy cartoons from anime, and, you know, you compare that to the American animation industry where it's all about, like, oh, they're making stuff for kids, it's all family friendly, it's always about musicals at the time. Why aren't they doing, like, more mature subjects? Why aren't they doing this? Why aren't they doing that? There's a lot of factors that I didn't really consider. Jeffrey Katzenberg has these, like, monthly morning things where he talks to the whole studio, and then there are like Q&As, and one person asked like, why aren't we doing more mature subjects? Yeah, it was all about like branding, having an image. You know, to make actual money in animation, you have to hit a large audience. To do that, you do family-friendly pictures. To make a good living in animation, especially with the Animation Guild rates, they kind of have to do that to make that much money. That's when I also learned how much people working in anime actually make. Some people don't get paid. There's a lot of like really weird, sketchy practices, and I heard from some friends that, oh, I didn't get paid, but hey, at least I did it for the experience and the love, and that type of mentality can be dangerous too.
So growing up as somebody who wanted to do this, watching all of the making of things, seeing all the art of books, and then even somebody in art school, talking to people in the industry, whatever. I think that I thought that my job was going to be that I would come in, I'd be given a character, and I'd be given information about that character, and then my job from that point on was just to progressively get us to what that character looked like, and then I'd send it off. And then I'd move on to the next one on the perfectly made out list that would never change, and I would just continue on this simple process and then send it off. And that is not what our industry is at all.
No.
Our industry is a hot mess, and it's just like building the plane while flying it. But the amount of shows I've walked into, and they're like, you're going to start designing characters, we don't even have a script yet.
Oh wait, we did that after Storks. Remember that one?
Yeah. Everything is being shifted out or rotated, or some executive gives a note and now suddenly you have like something else huge to address. And so relationships between characters will completely change. And what's so funny is that you'll end up with things where there are like certain remnants in designs that are maybe like holdovers. In Tulip on Storks, we designed her for like 9 straight months. We would think we were out of the woods, and then somebody would be like, they hate Tulip again. The design process never is this smooth trajectory with a real endpoint until the movie's out.
I mean, it's a business. I mean, I don't want to be cynical because it can easily sound cynical, but like, it's very rare that you find an organization that is doing it because they want to advance the art form or because they, have just this burning need to create animation. They're doing it for the money. And the only way it can actually happen is if they can make money. The people who are, funding it and the people paying for it, it doesn't matter what studio you're at, make no mistake, they're not there because they're trying to advance any art form. They're there because it will make money for them. And if it doesn't make money, this thing ain't gonna happen.
Right.
Now, do all of us who make our living at it leverage that fact into a career? Absolutely. And we got to know that. We got to understand that dynamic. That our livelihoods are based on the fact somebody out there is going to potentially make a lot of money off of our talent.
Right.
If you don't like that, go somewhere else. You don't have to like it. You just got to understand it and be okay with that, because that's just the way it is.
Tell us one artist trick that you use to compensate for a part of your art that you feel insecure about.
There isn't, but there's something else.
Okay.
So, and to each their own. If I feel like my stuff is not going to necessarily like go over the way that I want it to, I take that opportunity to really try to verbally sell my idea before people even look at it. Let me tell you what you're about to see. And let me tell you why I made the choices that I made. And let me tell you why it was well researched, well thought out for me to have been doing these kind of choices. And then I show the thing, note on the outfit, something, 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 something. I almost try crushing them with how much thought I put into it.
Well, yeah, I've got a lot of them. Everything I do is a gimmick. Yeah, there's a lot of like things in Photoshop that I'll do. It's like, okay, I know this one button that's gonna make it look good. Wait, what's the button? There are no magic buttons. I'm gonna take that back. There's things that I definitely do where it's like, oh god, I did that thing again. Oh no, we were on Canaan Road from Malibu. That was it. And we turned the corner and there's this view. And my wife goes, hey, look, that looks like a Paul Lasaine painting. And right away, it's like, yeah, I do that a lot, don't I? But at the same time, that's also what becomes style. I think all of us have that. We default to certain things.
I always feel uncomfortable every time I draw. I do try to learn all these different drawing approaches so I can talk about them when I have the chance to, or why it works. But as a trick, no. I mean, as a trick, I just draw really loose at first.
Moving on, fast.
Moving on.
This is a good one. Not all of the most famous movies artists have worked on was their favorite experience. What was your favorite film or show to work on, and why?
Lord of the Rings. No, I'm kidding.
I think that my favorite was Tangled. And then Storks is probably a close second. And it's for two very different reasons.
Definitely pick the Dam Keeper poems. That's the series by Eric O. Yeah, it only released in Japan, and it's on Hulu Japan. The whole production was just one tiny room, so everyone was super close. Eric was also an amazing leader and director, and he's very, supportive and encouraging, and all the other animators were just super chill too. And that's the thing I really like about small studios, is that you kind of have a voice. We didn't really have a fully set up pipeline, but that allowed for more experimentation.
Tangled is my favorite because the style was exactly my style. The workload as well as the schedule was so easily navigated. I had a direct line between my work and the person with the final say-so on all the designs that I was making. So there was no, I got it through this person, and then I got to get it through this person, and then I got to get it. I showed directly to our executive producer. He cleared it. I was done. I loved the original IP. I was with all of these artists that I got along with so well, and I made all these great friendships. The most pleasant convenient experience I'd ever had. Storks, I then named because our team was so small that I feel like we got to experience things that I don't know when I'm gonna get to experience that again. It's like mega people. I was in there with our editors. I feel like I was in there with our storyboarders. I was constantly talking to Brad producing, and like I could easily talk to Doug. We were able to do things like hear our score recorded. When are we gonna do that again?
Yeah, sitting in front of that orchestra, that was so cool.
That actually was one of my favorite experiences. However, one of my favorite shows that I ever worked on is one that probably most people don't even know about. It was called Dave. It turns out that the White House, you could shoot it, but only from outside the gates. If you ever want shots of the White House from inside the gates, you got to do it as an effect. So I ended up doing about 14 or 15 matte paintings of the White House from different angles, interiors, exteriors, all sorts of stuff. I don't know. It was a low, under the radar kind of project. The people on it were really nice. It was cool work. It was toward the end of my matte painting career. It was actually one of the last projects I worked on. We were all good at what we were doing, and it just went really smoothly. It was a really professional project. There were no the stakes were low.
Next one. Okay. Thoughts or tips on working on a style that isn't particularly yours and is difficult to get used to?
I mean, styles are tricky because there's got to be rules. It is the responsibility of the person who developed the style to come up with a style guide and explain how the style works. They can't just assume that you're going to get it. You know, you've got to be able to explain a certain amount. A style guide hopefully will explain some of that. You know, or like what we're doing on our project, we've got a pretty specific style, and our art director who developed the look has gone through while working on paintings, taking snapshots along the way, so you can see the progress. There's always a design language that needs to be explained. A lot of times, the more stylized something is, the more you need to be sensitive to composition, and because if it's totally realistic, that's easy. You know, there's photography out there that you can use as reference. When it's stylized, now, you know, just what does that mean? You know, stylized can mean so many things. For the artist, you got to get the style guides. You got to talk to the art director. Maybe
first we'll kind of be like, is there something about the shape language that I can grab onto right away? Like maybe something has a bunch of bumps or lumps, or I don't know, something that automatically doesn't feel as streamlined as I like to make things. I first am kind of okay, but through all of the other decoration on it, is there something obvious that I understand? There's broad shape language in there. Mm-hmm. Okay, well that's something I can immediately understand. So now, because I've figured out the thing that already makes sense to me, I'm then able to see, it's that thing that I do, only they're using much straighter lines here. Or they're using curves against curves against curves, whereas I would do a straight against a curve or something like that. Mm-hmm. Paying attention to where those differences are coming in. And then I start doing my own stuff off to the side once I've kind of trained my brain and my hand to understand where the style differences are.
Well, as a story person, I've mostly just worked in the staging side of that. And to me, that part is kind of easy because they'll just say, hey, we want flat staging. Hey, we want this and we want that. And it's not really anything about the design or the drawing sensibilities. If you have good observational skills, so if you know how to draw from life, that stuff just becomes second nature. The reason why some people have problems with it is because they have drawing habits that they can't get out of. Learn to break your own drawing habits. The first advice I always give people, if people always ask me, how do I learn how to draw for animation? Or how do I learn how to draw in general? And I always tell them, yo, dude, do blind contour. If I was just drawing your giant face on the screen right now, I'm not looking at my paper, I'm just drawing you, and it forces me not to care about my drawing. It only forces me to look at you and just draw that. What that allows is for me to be okay with making mistakes. It'll look like a total mess. But the beautiful thing about that is it shows that I observe, like, oh man, I would never consider this shape. It allows you to see things differently in different perspectives.
So like if you did that outside, just people like walking by, right? What if
just like staring at them?
Yeah, it's like fucking creepy.
Don't be creepy. If you want to be a ninja about it, you could wear sunglasses. I have a friend who did that, but then instead of just moving his eyes, he actually moves his whole head. So there was one time where he was sketching a lady, and then the lady walked by, and he was just like, and then he looked at him going, what the?
So you have to be really careful. You have to have sunglasses on. That's tip number 1. Tip number 2, don't move your head.
Don't move your head. Be a ninja about it.
How do you talk to your superior on how you have differing opinions? And has your differing opinion resulted on the final film or a show?
Not really. It's just that whatever the director wanted was so specific. So there are times where I have opinions, and most of the time, or sometimes it'll just not get heard, which is fine.
Okay.
I feel like if I strongly about something that I researched, like unless they have some reason they've given that's like, oh wow, okay, like I totally missed the point of what that character was supposed to be. Yeah, like what I made doesn't make sense. I'll say things like, okay, like I hear what you're saying. Let me tell you why I made some of the choices I made. How that's particularly phrased is going to depend on like your relationship with that director, how open they are to things, whatever. But it's like I always try to approach it from the point of view of I made decisions and here are the reasons why I made them. And at that point they may just go, yeah, no, I still don't care about that. It's just not really what I want.
Right.
It's almost like for my own personal sanity, and also so that when I go back to do the next round, I know for sure don't do that thing. Like when I was on Tangled, an episode that we did where there was a dragon. My EP was excited about it. I was excited about it because we both like dragons. So we were like, we're doing a dragon episode. I get to draw a dragon, whatever. He had a lot of opinions about like what this dragon ought to look like. And so I gave him a bunch of examples. He really started gravitating toward this one that I get it. Like when you see it, it's kind of like a very defined, clear shape, which is always appealing and will likely catch your eye just because there's so little going on with it. And I think he might have even like circled back to it again, even when we started drifting away from it. I think that I started pointing out things like either how it was going to be used or other characters that I knew that we had designed in the show that already used a similar shape language. Even our coordinator in the room might have said like, yeah, didn't we just do an episode? Something had a shape that was like that. And that just kind of like steered us in a whole different direction of, yeah, you're right. We really ought to be going for something that is standing on its own.
There's the political aspect of like, are you going to argue with your boss? Is that person receptive to that? Like I've had that happen before where I've had a boss who is very insecure, who really doesn't want to be questioned. If they're a receptive person and you're just like, let's try to figure this out together, let's work this out, then yeah, differing opinions is just, you and that person thrashing out an idea and coming up with a solution. That's super healthy. If you're a good arguer, you can convince like your director or your production designer or whatever, your art director, but at the end of the day, if they truly don't believe it, you're just going to end up having to redo it. Like I had that happen on Lord of the Rings. I convinced Peter Jackson of something, but it wasn't what he wanted originally. And I convinced him of something, and he was like, cool, okay, good, let's go with that. And at the end of the day, we just didn't do it. So it's like, it was how to light Lothlorien, the city in the trees. The paintings that I did, I lit very much like with a warm light. I said, look, it'd be really cool if like we have a really blue kind of environment, but light the place with these lights that are warm on the inside. It gives a really warm, friendly feeling. The architecture will look like chandeliers. He kept wanting this really cold, like icy blue kind of color scheme. And it's going to look really unfriendly. It's going to look like an ice palace. And I did the paintings, and he liked them, and he approved them. But at the end of the day, he still went back to his really blue kind of, and I still don't like the way it looked. But I realized that rather than trying to convince him of this thing, I wish I had listened to him and took what he wanted and made that better instead of trying to strong arm my idea.
Do you think that anybody can be an artist?
So that was a two-part question, right?
And do you think that anyone can work in animation?
I don't know, to be honest. I really don't know. Because, like, I might be living a lie, too. Like, I might be saying, yeah, you know what, everyone can. Or, no, only a few people can. But everyone's different. Some people get to the spots they're at right now differently. So it's really hard for me to gauge, like, can anyone do it? I mean, if people had the initiative and the drive to do it, yeah, they can find a way to do it. I don't think it's one of those things where everyone wants to be someone big in the industry. They might just want to be a helping hand, or they know their value in their lives is not in animation. Like, they can work in animation, but they know their passion is maybe their family or another hobby.
Right.
I did talk about this in a YouTube video where I talk about, not everyone has to have big goals in animation. That's fine. Some people have different goals in life outside of animation, and that's something that you also have to consider.
No, I don't. And I'm not saying that anyone couldn't. I'm saying a lot of people shouldn't. The only way you're going to make it or do that is because you want to do it. If you want to, then I think that you can do it. I think the person who is going to be successful is the person who has a certain amount of talent, but definitely has a drive, really wants something. And again, and the talent is just a plus. If you're that person who just can just pummel through something and really just work hard, you're gonna do well enough. And God knows within animation there's a lot of different jobs too. But are you gonna be a superstar? Maybe not. But again, most people aren't anyway. Are there people that I think are absolutely wrong for animation? I would say yes, and I would put that more as maybe wrong for art in general, but good at different things. I think that the artist mindset is a definite mindset. I mean, I know a lot of people that I could never see as artists. They don't think like this. They think in a very different way. And I'm not making a value judgment. It's purely clinical. Like, people's minds work in different ways, and it's so collaborative, and it's not about you. It's about the team. And
Yeah, exactly.
yeah, I mean, and again, it goes back to that question of how do you deal with a bad critique? It's like, well, you get those every day.
Yeah.
I don't even think of it that way, but it's like, yeah, you separate that. It's like, this is your job.
Do I think anybody can be an artist? Yes. I think that there are some people who have more of a proclivity toward artistic ability. I came out just automatically kind of understanding some things about how one would approach art. And then my enthusiasm for it allowed me to just keep practicing it. Like, nobody told me to stop, so I didn't, But I feel like, especially in the United States, nobody bothers to actually teach art.
Right.
And so people don't understand that art can be learned. That your level of dedication and enthusiasm, and probably your objective eye on where you're trying to get with that art, will determine how good you get at art. Do I think that everybody or anybody could work in the animation industry? No. My husband teaches. I taught. You remember I did that. And it's
right.
I am fully capable of teaching. I did a good job of it, whatever. The skills exist. But could I go and do what he does every single day of standing in front of those kids and 6 times in a row going and doing that? No, I don't like being around people that much. I don't particularly want to listen to myself that much during the day. I could not do that job. The fact that our industry is just this streamlined mess most of the time. You have to be somebody who's very comfortable with just being like, oh, we're not going to get it right for a while. Or my idea isn't going to be like the most special thing in the entire world to these people. It's not that I'm some like patron saint of understanding how patience works, but I've definitely like gotten to the point where I can kind of like turn something off in my brain to say like, that really doesn't have a place for that right now. I think that would probably frustrate any number of people.
Yeah.
You have to be able to accept different levels of input that you'll be able to have and different levels of agency. And I'm perfectly fine with any and all of them pretty much. And I don't know that everyone would be.
Best piece of advice to people who want to do art professionally, but the advice has nothing to do with art.
I mean, therapy all the way. Therapy all the way. Because people think that going to therapy is a sign of human weakness, but it's not. Because a lot of people have conflicting thoughts. If you have a conflicting thought and you don't know how to express it or you don't know how to put it out, a therapy or a counselor is great to put those thoughts into something that's auditory or visual or something that's just out there, so people can start dissecting it. Talk about feelings. It's not weak to talk about feelings. I think it's very mature to talk about feelings and actually address problems rather than just bury it deep down. So therapy, I need to get back into it for sure. I've been just so preoccupied. Yeah, it really made me feel good about myself in a lot of ways. But it also was very breaking too, because the thing with therapy is that you kind of visit places that's very hard too. Like you start to visit places that you've buried just to protect yourself, and then when you unleash that, it's also very taxing on you emotionally and tiring. So, people think that therapy is also about, this therapist will say this one magic thing that will make you suddenly happier or make you feel good, but it's really a process where you have to sit through, think about it, talk about how you feel about certain things and how those thoughts affect your actions. So it's really a thing that you constantly have to practice and do. It's kind of like going to the gym. It's the mental gym, basically.
Yeah, I couldn't come up with something from this like ahead of time. I would say the best thing that you can always do with art, and especially in our industry, remember that it is a job that you're going in and doing.
Yeah.
It's really special that it's probably a job you get to enjoy. If you can keep things separated in your head from where you start letting that job like defining you or you being like, first and foremost, I am this job. Or first and foremost, I'm an animation artist working on blah project. Like, I've done my best when I go in, I do the job, I have a good time, then I come home. And then my life starts. Mentally, always trying to keep yourself in check of limiting your job to a piece of who you are and what you do.
Yeah.
Versus your defining feature.
They're all slowly come to me.
Sure.
There's a number of advices that come along with it. Be willing to work hard. Don't get discouraged early. This is going to take a long time. Don't compare yourself to the geniuses. Most of us are not the geniuses. Most of us just have to freaking work hard. You got to play your scales for hours and hours and years. And after a while, you're going to get really, really good. Don't just think it's going to happen because you want it to happen or because you really, really love this thing. And that's the other thing too. Only do it if it's fun, because you are going to have to spend a lot of time working on this skill. But even beyond art, like, don't have just art as the thing that you do. Like, do other shit. I've got all sorts of other interests. I mean, I've got a family. That's an interest. I've got a daughter. That's an interest. I mean, I have music. That's an interest. I'm teaching myself how to play guitar. You always think of it as like, okay, that's the thing you're going to do when you're older. No, you've got to do those now, because that's the stuff that keeps you sane, because the work is just the work. Yeah. You look at all the great artists out there, whether they're the musicians or the geniuses and all that, they usually have all sorts of shit going on.
Oh yeah, for sure. Anyway.
Exactly.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
You're welcome. I can't wait to see it.
I've eaten up 2 hours of your time
I
re-recording.
am very free, to be honest.
I'll let you know how it sounds and it edits out. And I'll show you progress, of course. Cool. Thank you so much.
Let me know if there's anything else you need me to do with you.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're
I'll talk to you
welcome.
soon. Bye. Well, there it was. Everything you wanted to know about feature animation. If you watched this all the way through, seriously, thank you so much. I have more episodes interviewing directors, storyboard artists, production managers, production designers, visive artists, art directors coming up, so stay tuned. Wait. I feel like I'm forgetting something. In the first video, I mentioned how to get over really embarrassing moments, social moments. And then I talk about the moment that I farted in front of you. Do you remember when I farted? Do you remember that? You do? Oh no!
Well, because you made a big deal out of it.
Damn it. You remember that? Oh no. Okay, because like what happened was I was super nervous. I had some weird gassy problem. I blurted out, "Oh, I farted." And then we just had this like quiet, awkward moment.
Okay, so here's the answer to that. First of all,
Wait, helicopter. This is very important to me, so.
Are you recording this part?
Yes, of course I am.
First of all, I think I didn't notice that. I don't think I realized you farted until you said, "Oh my God, I farted." Second of all, I have a secret for you. I'm telling everyone else the secret. The secret is everybody farts.
You said that you come into our artist room that was like tiny as by the way. You said that you come in there and just fart sometimes quietly.
Everybody does, and everybody does it. Like there's a statistic like how often a normal person farts every day. It's like a lot. You want to try to be like conscientious. You don't want to like stand right next to someone and let one go. The small one like off to the corner of the room. Everybody does that. I mean, I think like what are you gonna do? You have to. I mean, again, if you feel like it's gonna be a large one and it's gonna be stinky, yeah, okay, like excuse yourself and walk out. What I think I didn't say is that I don't walk into your room and just let them go like just for fun. Somebody did that. No. I was at Prince of Egypt, and there was a guy who would do shit like that. One of my good friends, he's the one who told me. He said, "Yeah, so and so just came in like about 5 minutes ago, walked in, smiled, let one go, and walked out." Like
What the?
Like who does that? Anyway, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the accidental ones. But no, I mean I know you felt very awkward, and it was. But like honestly. I mean, but you know what? The fact that you actually said something about it makes you instantly human, and I appreciate that. I think that no, seriously, it's endearing. I think that maybe that is the way you deal with it. I mean, maybe it's harder in a big room. Like, oh shit, I just farted in this meeting.
Okay, well, thanks for clarifying that.
I put this in the category of things that they don't teach you in art school.